Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk here just a little bit this morning about ginseng root size versus age. It seems logical that the older a ginseng plant is, the bigger it's going to be. That is not true. It really depends on the fertility of the ground and the type of ground that it's grown on. If it's grown on real good ground and the ground is good and fertile, then ginseng plants will get, the roots will get bigger. Also, the plant itself will get bigger quicker than it will if it's grown on real bad soil. I'm going to show you a couple of roots here, and I'm going to show you what I mean about that. Here is a root, really, really small root that if you take a look at it, and I'll zoom in on it, I'm going to lay a little ruler down here so you can see it a whole lot better. But if you zoom in on this little root here, you can see that it's like really old. It's got a lot of age scars on that root. I would say that root is 20-some years old. Maybe even older than that, maybe 25, 30 years old, but it's really, really small. I'm going to take another root and I'm going to lay it up there close to that one so you can really see the difference. The root that I'm laying up here right now, close to it, and I'll zoom back out here so you guys can see this. The root that I laid up there close to that is nowhere near as old. It's about half the age, and you can see how much bigger it is. If roots are grown on real loose, fertile soil and they get the right amount of sunlight, then they will grow big in a relatively short period of time. But if they are grown on poor soil with poor fertility and the soil is really, really hard, really compacted, and you don't have that much light getting to the plant, then the plants will grow really, really slow, and you can have a plant that's 50, 100 years old that's just really, really, really tiny. I'm going to throw another one up there at you, and this little root here is 10 or 15 years old. This is probably the littlest one. You can see that it's got some, if I were to zoom in on that, and let me go ahead and do that, zoom in on it and get over to it. See if I can get around there to it. You can see that it's got some age growth scars on it, and you can also see how little it is. That root there is less than a gram. The bigger root, if I were to take and weigh them, I would say the biggest root here is probably maybe about 2 gram or maybe 3 gram. That little bitty one, maybe, that's middle-sized one there, maybe about a gram. And the little bitty one is less than a gram, maybe half a gram or less. So it really just depends on the fertility of the soil, how compacted the soil is, and the amount of sunlight that the plant gets. Ginseng likes a certain amount of sunlight. It does not like direct sunlight. It can stand some direct sunlight, but not too much. If you put a ginseng plant out in direct sunlight, it'll die within a few days. The sun will just burn it up. Ginseng is what's called a understory plant. And there are many type understory plants up in the forest. Your coash plants, black coash and blue coash, are understory plants. Most of your ferns, your Christmas fern, your maidenhair ferns, and your other type ferns, those are understory plants. They don't like a lot of light. Neither does coash. Golden seal is another understory plant. Another understory plant that people go out and search for in the spring is ramps. They are understory plant, not liking full sunlight. And they also like for good fertile soil. If you go up into the mountains, you'll find places where the soil is really, really hard. And you'll also find places where the canopy of the forest is really, really thick, and there's almost no sunlight that hits the ground, or very little. In those places, you'll find there's not very much undergrowth at all. But if you have good fertile soil and the canopy is not too thick, and the ground is loose due to leaf mulch decaying over the years, then you can have some good tall understory plants. And a lot of times those understory plants will get to be 3 or 4 foot high. And you can even find ginseng, which normally doesn't get that high. Ginseng will normally get maybe a foot or 2 feet high. But if the soil is really, really fertile and the plants have been there a long time, then ginseng can get up to 3 or 4 foot high. A lot of times ginseng will hide down underneath your other understory plants. And when you're walking through the woods, they'll be down lower than a lot of your other understory plants. The other understory plants, as well as forest canopy, are hiding those ginseng plants. So once again, this is about ginseng plants, the size versus the age. And this is not a well understood subject. I've been a ginseng buyer and dealer for about 10 or 15 years, and had a young student from Virginia Tech University approached me a couple of years ago. She was a graduate student, and she was working on a graduate thesis. And she was doing her research for her graduate thesis on ginseng root size versus age. And it was like September, October of the year, and I was buying a lot of ginseng, and I met with her several times, and she did a lot of calculation on the root size versus the age. She would count the growth scars on the roots. If you take a look, these are the growth scars here right along the neck. One of those scars equals 1 year of growth, and she'd count those growth scars, and then she'd weigh the root, and she found that there was no correlation at all between the size of the root and the how old it was. And that's understandable. I mean, anything you plant in a garden, if the soil is real good and fertile and loose, then the plant's going to do a whole lot better than if the soil's compacted and don't have much fertility. Also, another thing that plays into it is moisture. All plants need a certain amount of moisture, and if ginseng doesn't get the amount of moisture it needs at the right times, then it can cause the plant not to grow that fast also. Ginseng, as a matter of fact, in years where it's really, really, really dry, the plant will actually die, but the root stays alive, and next year it may come back. Ginseng is a very hardy plant. It's what's called a deep root plant or taproot plant. It's kind of like dandelion. Dandelion's a taproot plant, although dandelion likes full sun. Some other taproot plants are like carrots are taproot plants. And we've got some other, kale is a taproot plant. The root goes deep. Taproot plants, they tend to come back year after year from the root itself. That's what allows them to survive the wintertime, is those roots go really, really deep. I've seen ginseng roots go up to a foot or more deep in the ground. And they live down underneath the soil throughout the winter, because they're able to survive the cold because they're under that soil. The leaf mulch keeps them warm, as well as the dirt on top of them. So once again, there's no correlation between the size of the root and the age of the root. I'll give you one more example here. Here's a Ginseng Man type root. And I'll just lay these down here with the others. This root here has two arms, it has a chest, it has a head, it has a lower body, and it has two legs. It's a Ginseng Man root. It's a fairly nice root. You can see, if you take a look at the upper part, the neck on this root, it's only about 4 or 5 years old. So this root is the youngest of all those roots that I've got laying down there, but yet you can see how big it is. So soil fertility, how loose the soil is, how much moisture it gets, how much sun it gets, getting, of course, the right amount of sun, those all play a part into it. And there is absolutely no correlation between the age of the root and how big the root gets. So anyway, thank you folks for listening. I'm going to be posting a lot more stuff on here about ginseng and other things about nature out in the woods, hunting and fishing and those sorts of things. So please subscribe if you like this video, if you're interested. Thanks a lot, and you folks have a nice day.